This morning, one of his top allies opening the door for Biden to step aside.
Calling on Biden to step aside.
No indication he's going to step aside.
Step aside.
Biden should step aside.
Step aside.
Growing calls to step aside.
3 more calling for the president to step aside.
How would you convince a very proud president that he might need to step aside?
George Clooney and a handful of lawmakers have called on you to step aside.
That last one from the press conference last night. Every other step aside from this morning on CNN and MSDNC only. And now, Led Zeppelin. Stand by. Go like this. Been a long time since I rock and roll. Hey, it's Friday. Might be Friday in Joe Biden's political life, too. Reports everywhere, notwithstanding the conspiracy theory being spread by the New York Times, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, dozens of Democrats plotting to undo Joe Biden's presidency. The clock is ticking out loud. Womp, womp, womp. And, you know, that's a crazy world out there. It really is. I've had fun callers today, too. A lot of fun callers. F-Troop? What are you talking about? Remember the name of the Indian tribe in F-Troop? Do you remember? It was the Hekawi. The Hekawi Indians. Remember that, Jay? It was the Hekawi Indians. And then every now and then, if you don't know where they are, you'd say, where the Hekawi? Where the Hekawi? As you go out into the desert and get lost. And there was another version of the Indian tribe when we were kids that I won't share with you here because now it might seem unsavory. Pretty extraordinary things going on everywhere you look, I am telling you. Another story, USA Today. Bananas, diapers, and ammo? Question marks. Bullets in grocery stores is a dangerous convenience. I like convenience. It's like, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Shouldn't be a government agency. It should be a convenience store, right? And now USA Today has a story that there's an organization that wants to put ammunition, bullets for guns in vending machines in grocery stores, which would be very convenient. Do you have lots of 9mm hollow point? Because it's not the easiest thing in the world to find since Obama came along. Not because they're not manufacturing the 9mm hollow points, but because it sells out every time it hits the shelves because Barack Obama was the salesman of the year in every gun store in America for 8 years in a row. News broke out this week that American Rounds, which promotes itself as with the line, ammo sales like you've never seen before. Sounds good. Is operating vending machines that dispense ammunition at grocery stores in Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas, which is why Alabama, Oklahoma, and Texas are very popular places to live. The company has plans to expand to Colorado and other states, are likely in their sights, as a little play on words, likely in their sights. See that? It is dangerous, irresponsible. Sure it is. This is what they say. There's, people who've never held a firearm. They're like Alec Baldwin, terrified of everything. So I think it's kind of fun for, American Rounds, vending machines with ammo. That's very convenient. In America, we like things to be more convenient and at an affordable price, high quality, like Bob's Big Boy. Speaking of which, let's get back to Joe's Big Boy press conference from last night because there's more on that and then the news media responding to it. We just had a little news media response for you there in our montage. Got to have a montage. Amazing stuff. And then there was this, after calling Vladimir Putin, You got Vladimir Lenin, Vladimir Putin, and then Volodymyr Zelensky. I like to use my Spanish accent every time I use. You know, some people in the news media, they like to adopt a Spanish accent whenever they use Spanish words, Latin American words. Tegucigalpa, you know. They say lots of ridiculous things. Colombia, Latinos. They like to throw in a little thing. So I don't do that with Spanish, but I like to do it with Eastern European languages like Ukrainian and Russian and stuff. And Volodymyr Zelensky. What I'm really doing in my head, at least, is mocking the news people that use a Spanish accent with every Spanish word. Latinos. Now, let's go to Joe Biden from last night, because he called Volodymyr Zelensky Putin and then said, "Oh, did I say Putin? I meant you, of course." He is not good at this or anything else, for that matter. Joe Biden last night talking about Putin, and this is kind of it was a bizarro moment when he said that, now there's a war going on, as you might be aware, not that the news media is covering it because they're not. Remember war correspondents? I guess we don't have those anymore. You used to have people marauding through the desert in vehicles with video that works by satellite while you're moving. It was pretty cool stuff, and embedded with troops and all that stuff. But now they don't cover American hostages being held by Hamas, Hamas being funded by Iran, Iran being funded by Joe Biden and Barack Obama. But here is, there ought to be peace talks going on, but there aren't. Nothing at the UN, nothing in Geneva, nothing anywhere going on in the way of peace talks for Ukraine. And Biden last night talked about how hundreds of thousands of Russians have been killed in this war, hundreds of thousands, a generation of young men being massacred, and Putin doesn't care because, like the Democrat Party, he's a man of the left. And the left doesn't care about human life. Nobody takes human life like the left. That's in all of human history. Nobody has killed as many people as the left. The Democrats here, they call like 56 million abortions choice. Right? We need more of that. Let's fund more of that. Let's make it more available. No ammo in vending machines, but if they could put abortions in vending machines, they would. The left has contempt for human life, and that includes the Democrat Party today. They could care less. They care about Hamas. They don't want Hamas being killed. The Jews being killed, they're fine with that. They're not only that some are silent on that, the rest parade and chant in favor of it from the river to the sea, and Netanyahu's the war criminal. Yeah, sure, that's what's going on. Mentally ill Democrat Party. But back to Biden from last night, and he's talking about there's a war going on. You think he might want to have peace talks. Our Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, or somebody, we should have a delegation working on peace talks to stop the killing, stop the massacre. And he did this bizarro thing last night where he talked about Russia owning they conquered 17.3% of Ukraine. And then he said, well, no, 17.4%. And he was saying it like this was some kind of great accomplishment. Not for Putin, but for him, limiting the conquering of Ukraine to 17.4%, with hundreds of thousands of people dead on each side. We're getting toward 1 million people dead in this war, and he thinks it's going great because they've only conquered 17.4% of Ukraine. It was one of the most bizarre things ever, but here's Joe Biden now. He doesn't need to talk to Putin just because of the war going on.
I have no good reason to talk to Putin right now.
Except the war.
There's not much that he is prepared to do in terms of accommodating any change in his behavior.
How do you know?
And but there isn't any world leader I'm not prepared to deal with.
Well, except Putin.
I understand the generic point. Is Putin ready to talk?
What?
I'm not ready to talk to Putin.
There's a war going on, and I would think if I were president, I would want war, that war and other wars, to stop. And as the leader of the most powerful nation on earth, most powerful military, the strongest economy out there, you're handing it over to the Chinese, who are communists. Now, that's what Joe Biden said. He's got no reason to talk to Putin. And then literally seconds later, not 1 minute later, Joe Biden said this.
So I think that I'm prepared to talk to any leader who wants to talk, including if Putin called me and wanted to talk.
But you just said less than a minute ago the opposite of that, and that is just fine, right? Yeah, and this 17.3%, 17.4% of Ukraine having been conquered was a completely crazy little section of his. This is before the press conference. I believe the Putin thing was before the press conference, and he's making no sense. And none of the reporters, I'm making quotation marks with my fingers, asked the right questions or the follow-up questions or anything else. But it's okay because they've just conquered 17.4%, and that's a very precise number, so it sounds scientific, and that makes perfect sense to Joe Biden that means it's okay because only nearly 20% of the country has been conquered and overrun by the Russian military, so that's okay. I thought that was a very peculiar moment in American presidential history. Telling you. Very weird. Now, what the reporters should have asked about the doctor who's an expert in Parkinson's disease visiting the White House at least 8 times, according to the New York Times, 10 times, according to other publications. New York Times said 8 times in 8 months, I believe. Ask about the border and the murders of young women and the rapes of young women. Ask about Hunter Biden being an expert sitting in the Oval Office meetings and what role he's playing. Ask about releasing the audio version of the Robert Hur special counsel interview with Joe Biden about some of the many crimes that he has committed. About the fact that there was no war when he became president. Now there's a massive war in Europe, and he was talking about the hundreds of thousands dead, 17.4% of Ukraine having been conquered. Maybe a follow-up question on what he said or a question on what he said. Matters of war and peace in the Middle East. And he had a couple of idiotic things to say about the war in the Middle East. And they didn't ask him about the debate and how awful he was. They didn't ask him about inflation. They didn't ask him about everything being at least 20% more expensive today than it was when he took office. They didn't ask him about grocery store prices and gasoline prices. They didn't ask him about any of that. And that is not a legitimate news media, quite honestly. It's a terrible, horrible thing. And Joe Biden, as he was babbling, number nine, as he was babbling, he kept interrupting himself and stopping and saying this.
Look, folks, this is well, anyway, in the next debate, I'm not going to be traveling into 15 time zones a week before. Anyway, I'm catching hell from my wife.
What?
For that. Anyway, it wasn't about just, anyway, read what his objective is. And anyway, they're better than a lot of other people here too. But anyway, we just move things along. Anyway, from Wisconsin to North Carolina to,
Anyway, and that's when he loses his train of thought. This is an old guy trick. And then, who was the creepy guy on CNN? Saying that the reason that he screwed up so many times last night is because when he was a child, he stuttered. And who was it? It was Congressman James Clyburn on CNN. And hey, he didn't do very well in that debate, did he, Congressman Clyburn? I'll play that for you in a minute because the fake reporter at CNN is accepting of whatever answer the Democrat Party gives them. Pretty amazing stuff. Speaking of Joe Biden and economic matters, we're seeing surprising shifts in the American political landscape, of course, and it's urgent that we all be prepared. The presidential race is tightening up and getting interesting, and it's time to take action to protect your finances, your future, your retirement, regardless of who wins this election. That's where investing in precious metals comes in. Gold, gold, throughout all of human history has pretty much always been the primary hedge, the greatest hedge against economic and political uncertainty. And when it comes to gold, I recommend reaching out to my friends, my trusted friends at Advantage Gold. All you have to do to get started is text my first name, Chris, to 1-888-255-0668. You're going to get a free 2024 gold and silver guide. It's a great kit. It'll help get you up to speed. Plus, mention this ad that you've heard this ad and see if you qualify for a special $1,300 bonus, a $1,300 bonus. Make sure to take steps to keep your finances on solid ground as the political landscape changes and the earth shifts beneath our feet. Get started by texting Chris to 1-888-255-0668. Do it now. That's 1-888-255-0668. Message and data rates may apply. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Yeah, James Clyburn. They just make up excuses. Maybe he had a cold. Maybe he had the long plane flight on, maybe the motorcade ride from the White House to the convention center in D.C. tired him out. I got a lot more crazy Democrats and other stuff coming up too. Yes, James Clyburn on CNN, Congressman James Clyburn, who is given full credit for putting Joe Biden in the White House because the Democrats are racists, and I got that. And who was the fake anchorman, the fankerman? It was the Today Show. Oh, I apologize. It was the Today Show, not CNN. And it was which guy? It was Craig Melvin. Oh, Craig Melvin, talking to James Clyburn. They always try to have their black reporter do the black stories. That's a big thing in news organizations. Craig Melvin this morning talking about, hey, Joe Biden maybe didn't do as well as we would have hoped last night.
He starts by confusing his vice president with former President Trump. That was just a few hours after he confused President Putin with President Zelensky. Did he allay those concerns last night?
Well, those of us who are real close watchers of Joe Biden, we do know that he sometimes mangle words and phrases. But all of that is almost natural for people who grew up stuttering.
What? I just, no, that's not true. That's not what we're talking about here. This has got nothing to do with that. They lie all the time. Do you know that males are much more likely to be stutterers than females? Did you know that? I can't believe it's what time it is. What in the, for crying out loud, what the I was like that, for crying out loud. What is that? What does that mean? Crazy. Yes, sir. The Daily Caller has kind of a fun story today. The world's most populous nation has put solar out to pasture. Other countries should follow suit. By Vijay Jayara. Vijay Jayara. And it turns out a pretty wild thing. You know, India, China, they've got lots of people, and they need lots of solar, I think, because the sun, and it's kind of like free electricity, and everybody likes free stuff because free stuff is good, right? But and I had the Greenpeace founder yesterday, who was telling us that CO2 doesn't cause climate change. The founding father of Greenpeace, that was pretty amazing. He's a climate denier. That'll be the first line in his obituary. Greenpeace founder, climate change denier, CO2 denier. And I just like they did with Senator James Inhofe earlier this week in all of the media. Just amazing stuff, I'm telling you. Completely nuts. We are a country gone mad. Yeah, so India said they've had, they've got enough. They've had quite enough of all of this solar stuff not working out as they had hoped. Nuclear energy is, of course, the correct course of action, but Democrats are against nuclear energy. Burns too clean. It creates energy that's too clean. Then you have some waste afterward, and you figure out what to do with it. We're creative, imaginative people and intelligent people. We're the patriarchy. We'll figure it out. It's okay. You can thank us later. Just amazing. They're against hydroelectric. That is to say, building dams and allowing rivers to spin turbines for you that create electricity. Again, very clean, but the Democrats would say, well, what about the fish? I'm like, well, I think fish are delicious. What about them? So they won't allow hydroelectric. They won't allow nuclear. They won't allow oil and gas. These are basically all known forms of energy. Windmills were created by the Persians in the 7th or 8th century, and the Democrats see that as the future of energy. And the solar panels are filled with toxins. And that's why it appears now India is looking to phase out, to get rid of. You got so many toxins. There are more than 50 toxic elements in each solar panel. I'm talking about the little one on your phone or fields of solar panels out in Virginia filled with toxins which end up in landfills and seep down into your table water and poison your grandchildren. And that's the Democrat Party's plan because they're the left and they don't care about human life. Just like that. Extraordinary stuff. Now, let's get back to a little bit more Joe Biden because, you got a couple of media things that we got to get to too. But let's get Joe Biden. Let's go to number 10, numero 10, as the servants at Barack Obama's oceanfront mansion like to say. You think they're illegal? You see, there was a meme the other day of Barack Obama. Barack Obama invites Joe Biden to go paddleboarding. To go paddle because, his chef at his oceanfront estate in Martha's Vineyard, who just learned to swim days earlier, decided to go paddleboarding and drown. So the little joke is that Barack Obama wants to take Joe Biden out paddleboarding, and the implication is that he would drown him or Joe Biden would drown. And then somebody would become the next president. Not clear. I mean, that would be Kamala. And I got to say, more and more, it looks like they're really stuck with Kamala. But they're weasels. They could figure some way out of that, too. Joe Biden yesterday, making stuff up. I went looking for a fact check on Joe Biden from yesterday, and I haven't been able to find one yet about these false claims that he made, that Donald Trump wants to impose 10% tariffs on everything coming into the United States of America. That doesn't make any sense, and that's not true. But our news media doesn't care.
Meanwhile, Trump's calling for a 10% tariff on everything Americans buy, including food from overseas, vegetables, and other necessities.
Vegetables.
And economists tell us
and other necessities
that would cost the average American working family another $2,500 a year. It's a tax of $2,500 a year.
Yeah. If there were a 10% tariff on everything coming into the country, I think that would be an incredibly bad idea, and I am quite certain that President Trump has proposed nothing of the kind. And all our vegetables coming from overseas, we do get a lot of stuff from Mexico. They smuggle drugs in and children, so that Democrats can sexually exploit them in the broccoli, in the artichokes, things like that. And during his speechification part before the Q&A, before his press conference, which went on for 58 minutes, he lied about pretty much everything. Now, there was that so-called bipartisan Senate border bill, which had one Republican supporting it, Lankford, and I'm sure he regrets supporting it. And we got a bipartisan bill, got a bipartisan H.R. 2, House Resolution number 2. Last year, 2 years ago, actually would have secured the border by implementing what President Trump had done into law. and the Democrats rejected that. Then they came up with this phony border bill, the Chuck Schumer, the Lizard King border bill. All that did was fund judges down at the border to wave people into the country more rapidly, right? And Joe Biden lied this last night.
Our efforts to secure the border, southern border, is working.
No.
After Trump killed the bipartisan effort to secure the border, Republicans and Democrats had worked on. Because he thought it would benefit me and make him a loser, Republicans walked away.
No, it's because it was an open border bill waving millions more into the country and pretending that it was legal because you were fundamentally transforming, that is to say, undermining the United States of America by bringing millions, and if you can, tens of millions of illegal aliens and gang members and human traffickers, and how many young women have to be murdered and raped, and Rachel Morans, how many Laken Rileys, how many Ruby Garcias do there have to be before you guys start following the law? Just amazing. I've got a story for you out of Ohio, too, what the Democrats have done. In a small a city with a population of 58,000, and the Democrats have brought 20,000 Haitians into town. 20,000 Haitians. That'll definitely end well. Just amazing stuff. And Joe Biden lying about all the great stuff he's done on the border.
So I took executive action last month.
One
consequence, working with Mexico, border encounters have gone down over 50%. The current level is lower today than when Trump left office.
Lie, flagrant lie, outrageous, just fatuous lie. President Trump used 91 to 94 executive orders securing our border. Joe Biden, in the first week in the White House, undid every single one of those executive orders out of bitterness and rancor, and because he has a tiny little defective, rotted away brain. Amazing stuff, just amazing stuff. Now, with that, I got to say, I want to get to this remarkable news out of Ohio, because the Democrats are looking to destroy our country, and they're doing a heck of a job, I've got to say, when it comes to causing damage in the United States of America. And in Ohio, in Springfield, Ohio, the Democrats have thrown 15,000 to 20,000 Haitians. Springfield, Ohio has a population of 58,000 people, mostly Americans, as you might imagine. 58,000 people. And the population in 2023, 58,082 people. Joe Biden has thrown in 15,000 to 20,000 Haitians into Springfield, Ohio, which is not a border town. And they have really nice on the morning news today on the Fox News channel. They had the mayor and the city manager of Springfield, Ohio on there. And the, Himes is the mayor, right? He's the mayor. I've got to look at my notes here to make sure I have this right. The city manager is Rob Rue is the Springfield mayor. Oh, let's go to Congressman. Let's see. Where am I? Oh, I've lost my place. I've lost my place in the cut sheet. Now I'm back. So here is the Springfield, Ohio city manager, who is Brian Heck. Like, what the heck are all these Haitians doing here? Brian Heck, Springfield, Ohio city manager.
When we see a 25% increase over a 3-year period, we're a community, we do not have the capacity to sustain that. And it's taxing our infrastructure. It's taxing public safety. It's taxing our schools. It's taxing health care. And as J.D. Vance spoke on, it's taxing our housing.
And, Haiti has that problem with that cannibal leader, with a leader who's a cannibal, almost got... Barbecue. Yeah, it's Barbecue. He goes by Barbecue. He almost got Joe Biden's uncle, I think, in World War II. barbecue is cannibal. So that was Brian Heck. They've increased the population of the city of Springfield, Ohio, by 25% in 3 years, entirely with Haitians who are illegally in the country, who speak Creole, whose big leader is barbecue, who's a cannibal. There might be some cultural issues in Springfield, Ohio, a wonderful city filled with wonderful people. The city manager is Brian Heck.
It's setting communities like Springfield up to fail. And we do not have the capacity to sustain it. And without additional federal assistance or support, again, communities like Springfield will fail.
Communities like Springfield will, and this is happening all over the country, and the Democrat Party is doing this because Barack Obama threatened to fundamentally transform the United States of America. Joe Biden is his sock puppet, and they are here to make the United States of America unrecognizable. The mayor of Springfield, Ohio, is Rob Rue.
If you look at the impact that it would be on an area like New York, if they would receive 700,000 people at once, that would be the impact that it's having on our area, the growth that it's had. And our safety services are exhausted because they're trying to care for the people in a safe manner. It's become just very difficult. This border crisis, the policy of this administration is failing cities like ours and taxing us beyond our limits.
So Springfield, Ohio is being demolished by Joe Biden and the filthy, rotten, anti-American, un-American Democrats who hate you and hate America and hate the Constitution. And boy, the things they say about Donald Trump, they're terrified of Donald Trump. And this was on CNN this morning. On CNN, they had an Obama administration official, a woman on, to talk about how great Joe Biden did last night. And what they're talking about is how scary Donald Trump is. Ashley Allison on CNN this morning.
I have to be honest.
Be honest.
People are so terrified, including myself, about beating Donald Trump. They are disappointed that we are 15 days or however many days, 2 weeks after the debate, and we're still having this conversation.
About dumping Joe Biden, which the Democrats are all involved in, and honestly. And then they had a Democrat Party donor. That means you're big time because you're on CNN and you're talking about being a big time Democrat Party donor named Maggie Kolyak. Maggie Kolyak. And they're all, and it looks like a woman, maybe not always though, and they live in a constant state of panic and terror.
This kind of lack of clarity and division right now in terms of who our nominee is not a good thing. I think persisting in this direction is really a huge mistake. And to be frank, it's somewhat terrifying.
It's terrifying
to lots of folks who very much fear a return of Trump to the White House.
Okay, yeah. The people of Springfield, Ohio, do not. They're not living in terror. The family of Rachel Morin not living in terror. The family of Laken Riley and family of Ruby Garcia, they're not living in terror of Donald Trump's return. People that own local grocery stores are not living in a state of terror. But the Democrat Party, they've so propagandized, they've so brainwashed millions and millions of people through their information dominance and the propaganda machine that they own and operate. They're terrified because mean tweets or he made fun of Rosie O'Donnell or something, and they've lived in a state of abject terror ever since. And if you watch CNN, you hear it over and over again. The terror, it's terrifying. It's terror. All right, people could buy houses, buy cars. Interest rates were 3%. Inflation was 1.2%. Venezuelan gangs didn't maraud around the streets of major American cities. There was no war in Europe, no war in the Middle East. Peace was everywhere, and it terrifies them to think that might return. Ah, yes. Now, of course, on the one hand, as we like to say, keeping Joe Biden as the Democrat Party's candidate is, you would think, politically great news for President Trump and for Republicans, and taking America back and making America great again and securing our border and ending war in Europe and ending war in the Middle East and saving lots of lives, and mass deportations have never sounded better. I've got to say that. But is Joe Biden going to make it? The drumbeat is getting louder and louder, and Obama is back there, and Bill Clinton perhaps, and definitely Hillary Clinton. And when James Clyburn turns on Joe Biden, then the Democrat Party, because they're such racists and such dimwits. Amazing times we're in. And CNN says the next 48 hours, dozens of Democrats on Capitol Hill have letters at the ready calling on Biden to step down. And Dr. Jill wants to stay because of all the trim benefits. It's a little play on words. Let's go to Steve calling from Bowie, Maryland. Steve, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris, great show. Hey, I wanted to talk about Biden's obvious cognitive decline. Mm-hmm. It's very similar to looking at a drunken sailor. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, our drunken sailor is the commander-in-chief. And let's say he's the captain of the Navy ship. And, he's slurring. He got all these little bottles of alcohol in his cabin. Mm-hmm. He's stumbling around in the ship. And, nobody is asking him to take a breathalyzer test, because if they do, they're going to get fired. So it's similar to Joe Biden. All his doctors don't want to get fired, so they're not going to demand that he take the cognitive test.
Yeah, that's right. And that came up last night, and he was all over the place, babbling about how he doesn't need, and he takes a cognitive test every day because his job's so hard. And it's.
Have you had the specific cognitive tests?
No one said I had to. No one said. They said I'm good.
So challenging, and it's a test, and he hasn't had a cabinet meeting in 9 months, and he hasn't met with the Fed chair in 2 years. Have a great American weekend.